Hi, my name is Maria Glymour, and I'm an associate professor in the Department of Epidemiology and Biostatistics at the University of California, San Francisco. And I'm here to talk about our paper, Does Mother Know Best? Treatment Adherence as a Function of Anticipated Treatment Benefit. This is work done in collaboration with my wonderful colleagues Quinn Nguyen, Roland Matsuaka, Eric Chutkin, Nicole Schmidt, and Teresa Asapuk. This paper is really broken into two parts. In the first part, we describe a bias that we call individualized treatment selection. And in the second part, we try to understand whether individualized treatment selection might have actually been occurring in a major social experiment, the Moving to Opportunity or MTO study. And I find that the bias is most intuitive within the context of MTO, so I'm going to describe MTO and why we were concerned about individualized treatment selection in MTO. MTO is a large social experiment that enrolled mostly families with children, moms with children, who lived in very high poverty public housing developments. And families were randomized to either receive what's similar to a Section 8 voucher or a housing choice voucher that would subsidize their rent in a private market apartment, or in the control group, they just could remain in public housing development. So the Section 8 vouchers in the normal world, they're actually there's a long wait list, they're very desirable. There are many more people who are eligible than there is money for them to pay for them, so usually people wait a long time to get a Section 8 voucher. So you might think that take-up in the experimental group would be very high because of the desirability of these vouchers. But in fact, what happened is that take-up was only about 50%. And we were trying to understand exactly why take-up had not been higher in the MTO study. And we thought maybe what's happening is that moms are looking at their kids, and some of them are saying, that this is just not a good time for my child to move. Like, my child right now, it's not a good time for him to have to make new friends, to have to be in a new neighborhood. I don't think that this is good for my kid to move. And whereas some others were like, fantastic, we can move out of a really high poverty community and that'll be good for my kid. So basically, we were concerned that mothers might anticipate whether their child would benefit from the move, and that would influence their take-up of the randomized treatment. And in fact, there is evidence in MTO that some kids benefited from moving, and some kids were in fact apparently harmed, at least for some outcomes, by moving into lower poverty communities and take-up of the treatment in the trial. So we consider that individualized treatment selection. And what's interesting about individualized treatment selection is it has some unexpected consequences. And for one thing, even in a randomized trial, when we do an intent to treat analysis in a randomized trial, we expect that if the true population average treatment effect is null, then an intent to treat analysis will also be centered on the null. But that is not necessarily the case in the context of individualized treatment selection and effect heterogeneity. Similarly, if the true population average treatment effect is not null in the context of non-adherence in a trial, we expect, so there's the null and the true population average treatment effect, we expect the intent to treat effect estimate will be somewhere in between depending on the severity of non-adherence. But in the context of individualized treatment selection, that also does not have to be true. You might have the intent to treat effect estimate being outside of the bounds of the null and the population average treatment effect. So this is a very important result. If it's happening, it could really change our interpretation of a lot of the intent to treat effect estimates. And individualized treatment selection also may occur in an observational setting. It's just very hard to evaluate. Whereas in a randomized trial, you actually can evaluate it, and we propose an approach to evaluating the plausibility of individualized treatment selection. So that's what we did, and we tried to evaluate this within the Moving to Opportunity study, and to find out what we found, what our results were, you have to read the paper or at least read the abstract. Thanks a lot. It was a pleasure to describe the paper.